once you hit stop, it said stop recording.
I just did it now. I put recording. You
Yeah,
should see the red dot.
I can see now.
Yeah, so you were talking about Kierkegaard and how nihilism and how people go into a dark path because of that mindset in the way of thinking. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
find
think.
it to be really interesting because my feeling also is that you need to learn all of these disciplines as much as possible, and you not use the one that's appropriate for the given situation, but you need to know a little bit about all of that stuff. But yeah, tell us about you were getting into a Nietzsche and Kierkegaard. I interrupted.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that's what I was saying is that like that's what nihilism is, and I think honestly that's why like people who aren't that observant or just kind of grow up and they're brought up in whatever religion or they're brought up in whatever town and they just kind of do their thing. They tend to be a little bit more happy because they're not conscious about all these different things. And I think for like just people as a majority, I think that's why there's a lot of depression and this and that because the postmodernist era, which is just like the culture zeitgeist, is all kind of going through this very nihilistic point of view. So it's like that's why everybody wants to create their own gender. Or I mean, there's people that want to be aliens now. There's
Right.
because they're trying to express that. But then it's just like for me, um, I just never wanted to be in what Nietzsche called or Kierkegaard called bad faith, which is I just don't want to come to my existence and say when somebody says, "Well, why do you believe in God?" or "Why do you believe in this?" and just say, "I don't know. It's just the way I was brought up, or it was always that way." I want to have an explanation. I want to have a reason, and that way, if I do choose to follow something or I do choose to believe in something, it's because I chose it for my own individual, basically my own individual beliefs, and I carry that through the void of the universe, whether it is indifferent to me or not. You know.
People don't have any clue really. I think a lot of people don't have a clue on the weight of that word choice. I mean, it's a hell of a word, man. The choices that you make in life, what you choose to do, what you choose not to do. You know what I mean? And that's why it's so important, really, to read and to stimulate yourself with different types of thinking and different types of thought patterns and how other people did with like the Japanese way of thinking. Like I don't know, before we were talking about the Book of Five Rings, but there was the other book, the Hagakure. I was telling you about the movie Ghost Dog.
Yeah.
You really need to check out Ghost Dog. I'm gonna try to find the link and send it to you.
I think I'm gonna watch it after I get off with you tonight, dude. I'm gonna go find it.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying though, just keep it in your head because I'm sure you'll come across a Ghost Dog. But the point is, like, he was into the whole Bushido, into the whole samurai culture. Applied it. He was working for some mafioso dude, in the '70s or whatever. This is the movie. It's not a true life movie, but it was a novel, Ghost Dog. But that discipline with just when you have that in your disposal, that Eastern way of thinking, or maybe that Nietzsche way of thinking, or the Aristotle kind of point of view, it's so important to be able to have these different type of things. I think you appreciate life a lot in a much deeper level when you have that kind of framework to view things from. You know what I mean? Like I notice people that are philosophically inclined, when they break it down to you, they kind of bring you through the levels of their whole thought process so that you have a real clear understanding of where they're coming from. Kind of like what you're doing just now. You were talking about Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. I think it's important to be able to do that and explain yourself why you believe in certain types of things and why you make the choices that you make. It's so important. That's why I really like having you on the show because you kind of cut the chase on a lot of shit. You get right to it. So yeah,
Oh,
man. What other things stimulate? What other readings stimulate you?
I mean, just for the fact that's what I've been getting on as of lately, just with like the Kierkegaard and all them, but also during this fight camp, I listened to this book again. It's one for some reason about 2 weeks before this last fight. I call it the fear. You know, a real big fear, and it usually hits me at night. So I remember that it was probably like my 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 a week and a half since I came back to Thailand, training with my boys at Team Quest. And I felt good. Felt I was a little bit tired, jet lag. I didn't have the best sparring day that day. and I just felt like nothing was kind of going my way, and I remember I laid down that night, and then all of a sudden the fear, all the doubt came in, all of the voices in your head that are saying, you're going to lose. What if you lose in front of everybody? What if this happens? You're going to go back home. You're going to go back home as a failure. You're going to go back, all these the negative, just the negative voice was just kind of going in my head, and it kept me up. And not only just the ego, but then the body started getting afraid. It's like, well, what if you get kicked? What if you get head kicked? The guy's most dangerous weapon was he's really good at throwing wheel kicks and axe kicks and all these really unorthodox, like Taekwondo traditional martial arts style, which are really deadly. If I stay in that range, and he hits me, that's a hard kick, kick to the body or kick to the head you're gonna take, and just you could possibly die. All those things come into my head, and um, I couldn't sleep. You know, I was up all night, and I
Now,
remember
this
the
is the night
sunrise
before
coming
the
up.
fight.
And what's
The
up?
night before the fight. I'm sorry. The night before the fight. This was.
This is about 2 weeks out.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 2 weeks out. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was about 2 weeks out before the fight, and I just got extremely nervous, man. And like you said, you said like what books you read. Books to me, somebody explained it's like having a room full of people as advisors. You know, if I
Right.
have Nietzsche in the room, if I have Aristotle, if I have Seneca, if I have Lao Tzu, if I have
Marcus Aurelius. Yeah.
yeah, Marcus Aurelius, Miyamoto Musashi. Yeah, I have
Yep.
all these
Yep.
in the room with me at all times. All I have to do is just grab a book. All I have to do is listen to an audio tape, and I can ask these guys for advice because I feel when you're up like that and anxiety happens, is that you're trying to address a situation in your life or address a situation in your problem that needs immediate address. And if you can't be sleeping, you got to do something to alleviate that. And one book that I've listened to since I was 19 years old. So what was that? 2009. It's called The Way of Fight by George St. Pierre. And you don't even have to be a martial artist. I just think the way that this guy thinks in that book, and he basically embodies what I think it means to be a fighter, to be a martial artist. He has the balance of both the East and the West. He's very scientific in the way he thinks, and I found a lot of comfort in his words, and how to progress. And just, I mean, there's just so many things in that book that I could just draw upon that I find very beneficial for anybody in life. That's one book
I
I'd
saw
highly.
something.
What's up?
Sorry to interrupt. I saw with GSP specifically on one of them video things on the UFC where he was having a panic attack or something like that, like prior to a fight, and I think he started seeing a fight psychologist, so kind of
Yeah,
associated to what you're saying, and it turned to, and that was in the very beginning of his career, and
yeah.
he got into the fight psychology. It's like he said he would get these moments of fear prior to a fight, just like you was stating. It's interesting. So, did you realize that about him, and that he wrote the book for that reason, or how did that happen? The
That's
GSP book.
growing up. Like, I mean, as a fan, he was one of my favorite. I mean, we both fight in the same class. I mean, I always knew I was going to be a welterweight fighter. And so anybody that was in that weight class, I obviously admired. And really took a shining to GSP just because I thought, man, this guy's the perfect athlete. Look at him. He can do takedowns. He can throw jabs very nicely. He throws all sorts of weird Kyokushin karate kicks. Like this guy is the real deal. And when I had found out in his book how, because I felt like going into fights or when I was going into wrestling competitions, I was terrified. I was constantly terrified, and I thought maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not made to fight. Maybe I'm not made to do these things. Why, if I'm so scared? Look at all these dudes in the UFC or wherever. They don't look scared. They don't look like this. Am I in the wrong sport? And coming to find out, the greatest guy of all time, the dude that I wanted to idolize, he's like, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified.
Wow, wow,
You know, and I found comfort in that, knowing that the greatest fighter, considered probably the greatest fighter in mixed martial arts history, is absolutely terrified, you know? And what does he do to get over those fears? And he said that he trained. Most fights are won in the dojo. They're never won in the ring. That was the first thing I had learned. You know, that he tested his mettle fighting everybody in Canada, fighting all the best of the best guys in the dojo. And once he got over that, he got to a certain. The coach even explained it in the book. He's like, I wanted George to be around real professional fighters as he was coming up. I wanted him to feel the energy, the aura that these guys gave, a sense of danger, a sense of once you become a fighter, you have this presence of power around you. And I wanted him to feel that. And as he started to fight with these guys and they slowly started to lose that aura, he started to break down his fear and he started to see it in himself.
Yeah, GSP is a tremendous man, mentally, physically, spiritually. You know, even when he would come out to fight, he had the whole the whole Japanese with the that wrap around the head and the whole, the whole, I don't know what style karate that is, but when GSP would come in, he had that whole, the headband with the
Yeah,
Japanese writing. Yeah,
band.
he takes it real seriously, man. GSP, and he's like I
He
said,
is he's not a fighter and he's not an athlete. Like a lot of people say, like they build him up as the greatest athlete of all time. If you were to put him on a track, he'd be average. You put him on weightlifting, he's an average athlete. There's nothing really special about him. Of course, they have to build all that stuff up because, it's promotional work. You have to. But if you really look at him and you look at his story, he was bullied as a kid. He was sickly as a kid. He wanted to do this thing. He felt inspired. And when he talks about the inspiration that he felt, it's the same feeling that I get, or the same feeling anybody who gravitates towards whatever it is that they're inspired to feel. And regardless of the fear, he kept coming and showing up every day. And as he got better at his skills, then he started taking fights. And as he started building that, he slowly, slowly started to become what he is now, which is George St. Pierre. You know? And it is a beautiful journey of going through his mind and going through his process. And I mean, just his day to day, he says the greatest guys' lives are ruled by routine and mundane routine. You think it'd be a boring day. He explains it up. I wake up in the morning. The first thing I do is I ask where do I got to go and who do I got to meet. Once I got that, I grab my bag that's right next to the door. Because if I don't have to pack my bag the day before, I'm wasting mental willpower doing that. Every time you like packing your bag in the morning, you're wasting mental willpower. But if it's already done and I grab it next to the door, I still got willpower to go to the gym. I got my focus towards it. I get to the gym. I wrap my hands, Once I get that, I start going through the motion. Whether that day we're training wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, strength and conditioning, sprinting. But then I start out going through the motion slow, and then we build up speed. And then I do that for an hour and a half. I go eat. Then I come back, take a nap, go back out and train again. Once I get home, throw all my clothes in the wash, hang my stuff to dry, and I repeat the process. And it doesn't sound sexy. It's not the greatest life, but that's the life of a fighter. That's the life of any great artist. It's mostly life of a mundane routine, and to be a master of that.
So now the fact that you're training for just basically for the boxing, do
Yeah.
you kind of slow down on the jujitsu and the pad work and all that stuff like that, or and the kicking how does that work as far as your training goes right now?
So for me, knowing that it's just going to be boxing, I'm switching it more over to a boxing routine. Like this last week, once I knew I got the fight, like the other day, I was researching for 3 hours, watching every bare knuckle boxing fight that I possibly could, watching how the guys were training for it, the different techniques, and just trying to create a plan and a schedule. And then from there, I planned out, okay, I got 5 weeks. I need to do this, this, and this, and this every week, and this, and this. And then as I get closer until the day of the fight that I got circled in a big red thing on a calendar saying that this is the moment, So for me, I'm going to have one day just jiu-jitsu is fun for me. So I need one day to still kind of train and to kind of take my mind off of just boxing every day. But for the most of it's going to be boxing, man. Strength and conditioning, doing pad work, doing shadow boxing, doing footwork. And for me, I'm excited because I know this process, whether I win or lose, but I plan on winning. I always plan on winning. I never have that feeling that I'm going to lose. But all this training can just help me to become a better fighter. I know my striking is significantly going to get better for MMA, is significantly going to get better for possibly taking an MMA or a Muay Thai fight, or possibly taking a boxing fight in the future. Or I'm even in talks with talking about doing Lethway. So I mean, that'll definitely help me in Lethway.
What is that Lethway?
Oh man, you don't know what Lethway is?
No, I never heard of it.
He's kickboxing, but it's the
Kickbox.
same thing. There's no wraps on your hands, and they allow. It's just the same rules as Muay Thai. You can kick, you can knee, you can elbow, but you can also headbutt and
Damn.
slam.
Where's that from? Where's that from? What country?
So it's from Burma or Myanmar. So it's
Interesting.
right next to Thailand, like kind of closer to Nepal and India.
Lethway, it's called?
Yeah, way. I think it's Leithwai.
Yeah, I never heard of it. Wow, that's crazy
You
stuff.
gotta check it out. It's pretty. It's extreme. And if you get knocked out, you're given 2 minutes to recover. And
Damn.
if you continue, you can. It's a pretty nutty sport, but they're starting to pay big money for it. But I feel like if I want to see how well I fare in this bare knuckle boxing, and if I do well in that, it's like, well, I can definitely do Lethway then.
Well, it seems like you want to, you want to participate in all those different arts, which is, you should probably continue this path, and then when you're done, write a book on the experiences, man. Because I mean, it's a lot. It's a big palette that you have to draw from.
Yeah,
And it sounds interesting just listening to you talk about that.
yeah, man. I kind of realized, like, when we're talking about all the existentialism, when I was reading about Nietzsche and reading about Kierkegaard, is that you have to define your life by a purpose. If it is, what is it that I want when I'm on my deathbed? What is it that when I want to look back on my life and say that I did? And I want people to look, at least for my fight career. I think this is also important for anybody who is striving out to do for something, is that don't let whatever it is become your identity. Because I saw guys where like all they saw themselves was a fighter, and once they got old or they got injured or they had a forced to retire or they had a family or whatever, I could see that there was just this big depression because a whole of what they used to be, or was kind of gone. And I always told myself is that fighting is what I do. It's not who I am. But if I want to let people look at just as Javier Trujillo as the fighter, I want to be remembered as the guy that was willing to do the things that nobody else is willing to do. And you could just tell that Javi was just here for the violence, and he loved fighting, and we love watching him fight. Regardless
Amen.
of what it.
Amen. Yeah. No. It's the world needs all different types, of people, and we need people that, like the extremes of every, other thing. It's funny. I did an interview Wednesday with this I was going to say kid, but a young man, out of, I think, Vancouver or whatever. He's an artist and he's a musician. So, we were exchanging back and forth. You guys actually, Tortuna, I think his name is. But yeah, long story short, we were exchanging some things or whatever. So yeah, I brought him on the show, and it was a nice podcast. It's funny, that was from when I was looking for some like artwork, and I saw this bronze statue of a fighter from 300 BC, and I noticed he had the hand wraps on. So I was like, "Yo, I put your name on it." I was like, "You saw that, right?"
Yeah,
So it's funny. So he commented on it. And because the first person that came to mind was you when I saw that, because I saw the hand wraps, and I'm like, damn, that's Javi, like 300 BC. So yeah, so we ended up exchanging, but yeah, it's just interesting stuff, man. I mean, I got some really positive feedback too on our episodes too, and they got a good amount of views. So it's a popular episode that we put out, the last one, you and I. So yeah, man. I love this whole technology thing that we're into right now, where we can have these type of exchanges. Like you're in England right now, and I'm over in Jersey.
Other time could we do something like this? But it's fun. It's fun to be able to connect with people who are very like-minded too. And spread that message out.
For sure. So yeah, man. Like like I said, I think it's important, especially for some of the younger people, like to realize what's happening right now. Like we're wasting millions of dollars, and whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump or whatever, I don't buy into any of these guys. But we're wasting all of this money that could be put to good use to try to implicate this guy with RussiaGate or that he called the Ukraine or all of this bullshit. So we if people thought like you and I did, this world wouldn't be in the condition that it's in right now. People are they can't think past their next paycheck or past, the next burrito that they're going to be buying. I mean, people need to get this shit together, man, so that we can all see what they're really trying to impose on all of us right now with all of this one world government shit. I know you and I are like-minded in that sense.
Yeah, man.
You
I
know,
mean, also what's kind of bugging me about all this impeachment stuff and this and that is like the narrative for a lot of people is that the orange man is bad. The orange man is the problem. The orange man is the reason why my life is terrible. And it's like, no, your life is terrible because you made it terrible. Your life is bad because you made it bad. And if it's so bad, you need to get up off your ass and make the fucking change. That's what I realized, that's so. I mean, being away from America and now wanting to eventually go back, I realized that that's something that is truly American. Is that, yeah, you know what? The odds are stacked against you, but they are far worse everywhere else in the world because you are limited by class and you're limited by social structure and your background and your family. Whereas in America, yeah, you got corporation problems, you got corruption, you got shit police, you got this and that. But at least you're still given that opportunity. If you get
right.
out there and hustle your ass off, and yeah, people are going to tell you no. And if you're trying to do anything great in this life, get used to hearing no. You're going to hear no a lot more than you're ever going to hear yes. You know how many times just for this bare knuckle boxing guy, I've tried to reach out to him 3 times before. And I mean, he probably doesn't even remember, but he said, no, I'm
Wow.
not interested. But
Wow.
for that say, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to do it. It's like, no, man. Somebody tells you no, get used to it. If you want to do something great, you're gonna hear a lot of people saying, "No, you're not good enough. No, we're not looking for that right now." You gotta get off your ass and you gotta fucking do something about it. I think it was Malcolm X that said it. It's just like you gotta raise your voice. If you want somebody to hear you in this world, you gotta say something. You gotta get out there and you shout it now. And you got to say, hey, man, this is me. Like you were saying the other day that I thought about is like, yeah, I'm out here. I'm trying to get mine. That should be
That's what it is.
Should be everybody's mentality, and like just with all this stuff, it's like, well, and I see on one side saying, that's why I'm kind of don't like the Democrats and this and that is because I feel they're splitting us up and they're trying to categorize us into this LGBT, into Latinos,
Yeah,
into black.
I don't like the Democrats, man. I'm sorry. I
These
ain't
rich
feeling the Democrats.
you're in such a bad position. It's like, no, man, it's because of the own faults in our own culture. And if we fix those things and we address them, then that empowers ourselves, and that's how we move forward. Blaming others for our shit situation is not how we get past anything.
Well, there's truth to it that we're being subjected to a lot of shit. There's truth to that, but what good does it do you to sit there and say, hey, the chips are stacked again? It's not going to help you. Like you said, you got to just get out there and get it in, man, because there's really no other way of doing it. Either you're going to roll over and be submissive and be dominated, or you're going to get up and take action, man, and affect change in your own life. And for me, that's the only choice. And obviously, there's a few of us that think that way, but I think it's becoming few and far between. It's what's interesting, Javi, too, the way I see it, they're going after the kids. They want to indoctrinate the kids. They want to tell a kid, look, you're 8 years old. What gender do you want to be? You're freaking 8 years old. Really, why don't you just let the kid be a kid, right? First, and then worry about that stuff later on. There's an agenda in place.
Yeah, and I think, this is why it kind of bothers me about like the left side. If the world was left up to them, they would allow a woman to get into a cage with me and let me beat her up because of out of equality. What kind of freaking world is that, dude? What kind of grounded in any sense of reality are you in where that's fine for me to just go and beat up somebody like that, man?
It's an inversion of reality. What they're doing, they're inverting it and they're turning everything upside down.
Yeah.
So the toxic thing right now today is masculinity testosterone and manhood. You know, you stand up and become a man and say, hey, because if you do, you're toxic. Why would you want to, Javi, why would you want to be so aggressive and say, hey, you know, speak your opinion? But that's the mentality today, you know, because they want to just get us so. Because look, I think I said it in my last podcast, if you want to conquer the village next to you, the focus that you have to put when you go to attack that village is where are the men? How many soldiers? What are they capable of doing? And that's what's happening to us right now is that they're taking the man out of the equation and feminizing everything. All the superheroes now are women. You know the whole nine. So
Yeah,
people are
man.
not aware. They're not aware.
Yeah, and I think the issue is that I mean, strong but disciplined men have to step up in every part of society because we're the people that keep it in check. You know, if somebody steps out of line or says something that's very disrespectful to another person, they'll look at the strong man and see how he reacts. That's how everybody else kind of falls in line. That's how normal society is supposed to work. And that's not a demonized thing or anything like that. It's just a
It's nature.
responsibility of it, like I was
It's
thinking
nature.
about something, I forget where I heard it from now, but they were explaining the story of Beauty and the Beast and what that represents is that Belle, she wasn't interested in the man that was in the beast. She was fascinated by the monster. But what made her fall in love with him and what made basically all the characters in the thing made the happy ending was when the man and the beast became aligned, when he became a controlled monster, when he understood to control that violent side of it. And that's when she completely fell in love, and that's how most
That is
men have to exercise that dark side of you.
yeah. Okay. Do I sound clear?
Yeah, you sound clear.
Yeah, you're very good. So you were explaining about the guy called you. You know, what is the date for this bare knuckles?
It's going to be January 25th, so about 5 weeks out from now. The challenge him for the middleweight title as well. So if
Oh
I
shit!
win, I'm champion of the organization in that as well. Man. So I mean, it's. I mean, I'm already probably counted as the underdog in this fight, but if I win, I win big. If not, then I got my in the bare knuckle boxing promotion.
I've lived my life that way. What you just said, like like Puerto Ricans say. I don't know if you heard the term before. Meta mano, get your hands in. For
Yeah,
us, it's a very weighted statement. Phrase meta mano. Your attitude is great. It's like, I'm getting in. Fuck it. It's gonna o lo rompo o lo arreglo. You heard that one before? Either I break it or I fix it. But you just jumping in, and you gotta love that shit, man. And it's true. I mean, if you win and you do great, it's like, yo, I got it. If not, hey, this is part of your path to whatever that you're doing. Like you said, being the most complete and thorough, warrior that you could be.
yeah, man. I mean that's why I wanted to take on. I'm not just saying that I'm a professional mixed martial artist. I want to say that I'm a prize fighter. I'm willing to compete in any style, any form. If the prize is right, whether it be money or a title or just a recognition that, hey man, this Javier Trujillo guy, he's a hard motherfucker and he's willing to do things that no one's willing to do. And I've been like that my entire life. So
So where can the listeners watch the your last fight? Is that going to be and the new one coming up? Where can we see you work at?
so the last fight that I had fought on, you can find that available on their Facebook page at Full Metal Dojo right now. You'll find the live stream link, and then they're still editing and cutting down all of it until to make it into fights. So that hasn't uploaded quite yet. But if you want to see the whole show from beginning to end, you just click on their Full Metal Dojo link on their Facebook page. And if you click like, they'll give you updates every time that they're going to be having new fights. I believe in March, they're talking about getting me on that card as well, but it's going to be just Muay Thai, but in MMA gloves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Elbows and knees allowed?
Elbows, knees, and allowed, just like Muay Thai, but it's in a cage and it's in with MMA gloves on.
That sounds real interesting.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a cool organization, man. I really think they're very forward thinking. I'm excited and I'm happy that I'm like the face of their organization as like their biggest star. But I think what they're trying to do and how they make fights and how creative they get with the promotion itself, I think it's awesome, man. I'm just happy to be a part of it. You know, real life Kumite.
I dug. Yeah. What is that Kumite? What I've heard that before.
You remember the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Okay.
That was
I
the event.
saw the. Yeah, I wasn't a huge Van Damme guy, but I do
Right.
remember Bloodsport. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, they're on this thing. They got the '70s vibe on the advertising and the whole. I was kind of checking the Starsky and Hutch kind of on the banners. You know, it's kind of cool. And I see you up in there. You know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, man. I mean, the guy, John Nett, the head owner of the organization, he went to Thailand, was fighting as well in Muay Thai, and then slowly worked his way up to becoming a promoter of a underground MMA league and bringing MMA to Thailand, which is incredibly hard because the Muay Thai is deeply embedded in the culture, and anything that's an outside threat to it usually gets shut down. And from making deals and doing this and that, he finally got it to become legal in Thailand.
Wow. And how was he able to do? I'm sure in Thailand, I'm sure you gotta pay the right people. You know, I know how it operates over there.
Palms or know the right people in order to get something like that done. Otherwise, there's no way that a show like that would ever happen.
Percentages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So now tell us about, like I said, so tell us about how they can watch the new your new fight coming up, which is also a championship fight, title fight. Tell us about that, how we could watch that or how that's going down.
On Fight TV, I think it's by pay-per-view, and yeah, you guys can watch it there on live stream, or I believe you can get it on cable television as well. And that'll be January 25th. We'll be fighting this guy named Rob Boardman. I believe he's a like a pikey or whatever they call him, like these kind of wandering type things.
Oh, the Gypsies.
Yeah, I think he's one of
Yo,
those.
those are tough dudes.
Yeah, he is a tough dude. But hey, man, I mean, that's the thing is, I feel, looking at his fights, he fought a lot of guys that are purist boxers, and they even said for this organization that their top guys are all MMA guys, and I think it's just we're all used to fighting with the small gloves.
Right.
So for me, it's not that much different than MMA. The only thing I'm kind of excited about is I finally get to let my hands loose because I'm always constantly worried about the takedown, and this guy ain't going to take me down. So it's like, I can finally get creative with my hands.
Interesting, yeah, because with the MMA, it's the striking in MMA is obviously different because of the takedown.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different because of the takedown. It's different because of the gloves. Like, a big hole that I saw right away with a lot of MMA guys when they try and just block with both hands like this is that the small gloves get through. You don't have that big wall of protection like you do with 14-ounce gloves or 12-ounce gloves. So it
Right.
completely changes the way you block. It completely changes the way you set up stuff, how you throw punches, because you have access to this person at a bunch of weird angles that you wouldn't normally have if you were wearing normal boxing gloves.
Cool, cool. So I remember, well, I guess it was the day after you fight. I went on Instagram and there was some pictures of you with your samurai sword that you won and everything like that. Tell us a little bit about that experience, about the beginning of the fight, your opponent, and that whole process, your whole mental process.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I was just thinking about when you were asking me the last time, when we just had that chat about before the one that we didn't record, and I started thinking about as I was going through my motions, going through in the basement, is like this is my art, man. This is like what I do. Like I treat the day of the fight like I would a Tuesday afternoon, a Tuesday afternoon at sparring. I was just in the basement warming up, going through my routines, and then as the fight starts to get closer and closer, you hear the next guy go up, you hear the crowd all screaming, you hear the music going loud, and we're in the bottom of this basement. And how they FMD has it set up, it's raw, man. Like I said, it's the realest thing I had ever been a part of. The guy that I'm fighting against, this guy named Daniel Kerr, 135 Muay Thai fights, has fought the best of the best in the world, wants to
Wow.
take a crack at MMA again. And he's over there kicking pads, looking fluid, moving nice. I'm over in my corner just doing my thing, working with my boys. And then every fight, with the exception of one, all ended within like the first or second round. So the night was going quick. And I just remember I made that last like calm movement. I go through my head. What's mostly important, and I think it's not just for fighting, but it's just for life, is just your self talk. And I mean by self talk is just that mental talk you're constantly going in your head, and then how you view yourself and how you view everything. And I always say the same thing. It's just that I'm the greatest fighter in the world. Nobody can beat me. I work harder than anybody in this world. There's nothing I got this, And as long as I go out and do what I do, I'm going to come out victorious. And I just constantly keep saying that in the back of my head. Of course, you'll feel the negative chatter want to build up. But you just keep repeating it to yourself. And every time I feel like the negative chatter builds up in my head, I just remember motion releases tension. So I just go warm up with one of my buddies, hit some pads again, and constantly just reinforcing that positive statement in my mind. And so once they call us up, they call him up first, and then you walk up these like dingy stairs, man. It's like a dark little basement. And they call him up and they go up, and then I'm waiting for my entrance. And Bangkok's my town, dude. I mean, I started there, 3 years, and now I built up a big community and a big following there. And as I was waiting, I just said one last prayer, just like, just to watch over me, watch over my opponent, and, let me be victorious, And once that hit, they told me to go outside and make my walkout. And just going through everything, dude, it's just like in my head. I just say the last thing is there's nowhere in the world I'd rather be, than doing this. I feel like as men in general, we're growing from the moment it's like that Cat Stevens song, it's like the moment we can talk, we're ordered to listen, we're ordered to sit down in a chair, we're ordered to just to work, we're ordered to do this, we're ordered to do that. And for once in my life, once that cage closes, I'm free to express myself truly, I'm free to be what I am and unapologetic. And there's nowhere else in the world I can do that. And there's nowhere else I'd rather be. So for a lot of guys, they dread that moment, but it's like, why, man? This is what you work for. I get a moment in life that any other man would wish they could do. Any man wish they could be in the arena, but they can't because they're afraid.
There's like probably 10%, maybe less, maybe even 5% of the population are guys like you that they just enjoy fighting. Because I put a lot of thought to it, but you guys literally get enjoyment out of it. I don't enjoy fighting. I like martial arts and training in that shit or whatever, and knowing I can defend myself. But you guys literally, and not only enjoy fighting, but you like to test yourself against the next guy, see how good, you know what I mean? And I think that's an inherent, I don't think there's any way you can become an MMA fighter or anything like that, or at a high level, and not really enjoy combat sport. Just enjoy it for the sake of the combat.
Yeah, man. Of course, I think you got to kind of enjoy getting hit, and you got to enjoy taking hits. You kind of got to like the pain a little bit, but I mean that's why I can, when I look at like a fighting pit bull, or I look at like one of those fighting roosters, I get it. I get the essence of that being. It's like, well, you're kind of genetically predispositioned to do this thing, and so it's like, yeah, I just feel at home, man. That's my home,
Yeah. It's it's like I said, for a while. I'll give you an example: the Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal, the last one. My opinion, it was a little bit on the brutal side. When he got split up and when they got split open and everything like that. And they're both game and they're both throwing down, but I think that should have been stopped. I don't know, in my own opinion, immediately when it's to that level, because at that point you're really putting somebody's health at risk and their livelihood and the whole nine. You probably think differently. But and then the other thing, I think when the guy's on the floor, I don't think you should be able to hit him if the back of his head is on the mat, because there's no, you know what I mean? He's really taking a full shot. And again, you probably feel, full soccer kicks should be allowed, but that's my opinion. You know what I mean? What's your view on some of the like the soccer kick?
Well, in FMD, the soccer kicks are allowed. Um, like I said, I think the less rules, the better. I mean, the more rules that you add to any sport, the more genetically predispositioned somebody will be better off. But then I think something like MMA, where it's just so dynamic, where there are a million patterns that you could use to win, it's no longer about like a genetic. And what I mean by that is like, okay, if you're a basketball player, it helps out if you're 6 foot, 6 foot
Right.
7. I'm not saying that it's the end all be all. Of course, there's always exceptions to the norm, but for majority of them, you have to be a certain weight, or you have to be a certain length or lung capacity, or like
Right.
uh, have a certain size of hands, like Michael Phelps for swimming. But
What does he
with
have like? He has some like I think he's genetically predisposed to be a really good swimmer the way he's set up.
exactly, and that's what I'm saying with a lot of different sports. As we're fighting, you can be any type of body type. There's not a certain look to a fighter. Every fighter is different. Mike Tyson is completely different than Muhammad Ali. Nate Diaz is completely different than Henry Cejudo. That everybody comes in all shapes and sizes and forms, and there's so many different ways that an individual in a martial arts or a combat sport can express themselves. And for me, that's what I kind of find it, because it's no longer about your physicality or genetics. It's about how smart and clever you are. And that's what I love about modern day MMA, is that there's no more hidden techniques. There's nothing. It's all out there. A friend of mine, he explained it. He's like, well, we're back in the samurai era. We're just
Right.
like Shogun era. It's not about the technique. It's about the strategy and the cleverness of the fighter, the combat athlete. And that's
Yeah.
what I love.
Yeah, I can see you're really into the thinking side of it and the philosophical side of it. Because the first thing you texted or wrote me on Instagram was "Book of Five Rings," bro. I'm like, yes, your mindset, and as you said too, you're the fifth ring, which is the void, which is like my shit, the void, because that's where everything is at, man. That's
Yeah,
like,
man. It's funny, I thought about you when I after the fight the next weekend. I had my friend who was a yoga instructor, and he very good friend of him, but he came up with this idea with another buddy of ours called digital detox, where for a weekend you have to give your phone and you put it in a bag, and you're just going to have to interact with people like you would normally. And it was really interesting because it was also done at this retreat in a town called Rayong, which is about an hour and a half outside Bangkok. This guy who runs the retreat has the largest library of books in all of Asia, I think, or
wow,
something like the Southeast Asia at least.
wow,
Old school books, new school books, all sorts of stuff. The guy's also a martial artist himself, but he in my room, and they're in every guest room. And in my room, he had the Tao Te Ching, as I was flipping through the book, that quote that you told me came up.
oh, 30 spokes connect at one hub. What is not there? Are you 11? That was number 11.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah. That was the first thing that came up, man. I was like, oh shit.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, man. But yeah, that's the void. That's that fifth ring, and that's, like I said, the training and everything. Like I said, the fight is more physical the farther the way you are. The closer you get to it, it becomes all mental. And then that once the cage closes, or once you hop into that ring, then it's the void. There's no more thinking, there's no more nothing. It's just expressing, whether you win or lose, that's it. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, it's like, well, you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. You're only entitled to your labor. And that's what it is. Once you enter in there, it's going to be what it's going to be. The gods are going to fare in your advantage or not. But all that's mine is all the work, all the process. That's all I can say is mine. Whether I get a belt, whether I get my hand raised,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
See, I totally agree with, because I see a lot of people, they get hung up on. You see it on Instagram. Forget the billions. I want trillions. The bigger car. And to me, you're getting it all wrong in the sense of it's the experience, man. It's being here, and it's just rolling in the mud or doing whatever. Getting in a cage or whatever your passion is. is doing that. And a lot of people get hung up in that. Let's say they might do some MMA and they lose their first fight, or they lose their first 3 fights. And it's like, if you lose in 10 in a row, that's a different story. But I mean, they give up too easily, man. And I think one of the main things that you're going to get from any discipline that you do is just participating in it, getting involved with it, meeting that resistance, meeting that challenge. That whole Pressfield thing. I know we were talking about Pressfield. You like him a lot. You read some really interesting books, man.
Oh yeah, thank you, man.
You do, because you're bringing up Joseph Campbell and you're bringing up, Have you been getting into the Nietzsche a little bit lately?
Actually, you know what? I kind of went back to that this last month, man. That and Kierkegaard, I've been really getting back into. There's actually it's not a book, but it's a talk series. It's a lecture series on existentialism. It's called gosh dang it, what is it called now? It'll come to me in a second.
Yeah, whenever you try to remember some shit, it always goes away. Whenever you try to remember it.
Yeah, of course.
But you were saying Kierkegaard.
Yeah, Kierkegaard. And I mean, because the concept of like why, like I kind of started drawing myself back to like kind of reading like the Bible and a lot of like these older religious books, and why he decided to kind of go back to Christianity himself, because like I think with like existentialism and nihilism, like that's what like Nietzsche was saying, was like, okay, now that science is kind of taking the forefront of what God used to be for us, now we're going to be entering into a void of basically a nihilism where nobody will feel like they have a point in life. And so what Nietzsche was trying to do with the Übermensch and this and that is like, okay, well, if all the barriers of our culture are being torn down, then that means as the individual, we have to build our own stakes of morality. We have to build our own identity, and we have to find our own purpose in life. But unfortunately, I think like for a majority of people, that's extremely difficult. And what happens is, because that task is so high, I mean, that's why he called them the Übermensch, because you have to be a superhuman to tackle this task. And for most people, what happens is that they delve into nihilism. They think, well, if there is no meaning to life and there is no point, and nobody belongs here on purpose, and no, I mean, you ever watch this cartoon called Rick and Morty?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. And I mean, there's one quote. I mean, it's a nihilist quote. It's like nobody exists here on purpose. Nobody belongs everywhere, and everyone's gonna die. Now let's go watch TV. So it's just like. Oh. Miguel, you there?
Javi, hold on. We have a bad connection. Can you see me? Hold on.
Yeah, I can see you. Okay. You're frozen.
Yeah, I gotta just find the file, because it creates a file. You mess with Skype or not really?
Not really, no.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Javi.
All right, no worries.
It's a freebie, it works, but it's a pain. Hold on a second. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose what we just recorded, so bear with me 1 second.
No worries.
Share screen. Man, I'm so new to the Skype. You always hear me complaining about Skype, but it's like, that's why I ask if you use it. Because it's all right. Shit, man. That was all good content right there. All right, conversation, share screen. If I go here. You know what I think happened? I think it may have crashed because it just stopped recording. And you know what? I'm not even going to worry about it. If I find it, let me start recording now. We'll continue. Hold on a second. So I'm going to